fail fast. Heard of it? It means to dive into a project, produce something super fast, and then get feedback on it, then determine what works and doesn't work. In game dev, it means throwing together the roughest prototypes you can just to have some sliver of something that is playable and that you can either scrap or build upon. In this dev diary, we're sharing the first prototypes of Zelda Rogue, our newest project, which is a roguelite tactics meets dungeon crawler. Let's go! So as the rest of our team began to chip away at some early art and design work, our programmer, Miles, whipped up a procedural generation system for our game's battlefield. Afterwards, he worked on some other basic things like camera control, pathfinding, and movement. Next, Miles worked on implementing enemies and basic combat. And from this, we had our first build. With our first build, we then had to get the whole team on board with providing playtesting feedback. In order to do this in a way that was productive, we had to make sure we had a short due date for when we needed this feedback by. So while the team playtested, Miles worked on some infrastructure and addressed known bugs. So this way, the next build would be more stable than the last, even before considering what new features we were going to be including in this next build. So with prototype builds waiting for feedback, we had to create a system to organize ourselves so that we could provide meaningful feedback, especially since no one on our team was an actual QA expert. We created a Slack channel that was specific for providing feedback, and we created a structured protocol for giving and discussing that feedback. And I think that latter point is actually very important to emphasize. We have it so that we discuss a given point of feedback within the individual thread. Part of this protocol includes making sure that we answer some core questions for every single build. And those, in no particular order of importance, are what was most fun, what was frustrating, and what was boring. And for each of these, we wanted to follow up with, how might we fix it? And this doesn't mean that someone without a programming background has to suddenly solve a complicated game design or programming problem. But it means that if we are, say, identifying something that's boring, we're at least starting the conversation about what we might do to fix that. So maybe it's just simply pitching a random idea that, pops in from out of nowhere, or pulling off of inspiration from another game and seeing how did this game make this mechanic not boring, or how did how might this frustrating experience be smoothed out. And maybe I don't know what the tool is to smooth it out, but I know that this might be the angle that we can approach it from, or at least talk about approaching it from. We also wanted to prioritize completing the sentence of, it would be cool if we were building on the prototype to find the fun. Completing the sentence of it would be cool if is a great way to find more of that fun and find the experience that we want to play ourselves, but also to provide to our players. This also helped us stay true to our vision and goal of these prototyping stages, which is to really build a prototype that is fun to play, rather than building a prototype to reflect a very pretty, well-formatted design document. I'll give you a real example. So we decided to not implement a stealth system, even though this was something that I kind of maybe wanted to see. I was interested in games like Invisible Ink and how they implemented tactics and stealth together really well. After some discussion, we decided not to though. So why? Well, for one, it requires line of sight. And to make it successful, to make the whole stealth system successful, it would have to be done quite well, to the point of it being a unique selling point, which is the case for Invisible Ink. They utilize stealth, but that is what makes their game unique, and the story and the narrative and everything revolves around that. But we are going to have some simplified stealth mechanics. For instance, having traps or alarms allow us to introduce some elements of stealth without going too heavy. And this also allows us to add more variety to how each map can be traversed. When you spot an alarm or a trap, on some tiles, you're going to be paying some attention to that area of the map and thinking more carefully about how you want to position your units, how you want to go through it or around it, and essentially adds an extra level of depth to the gameplay that we wanted to see. In our next dev diary, we'll share some of what we've decided to iterate on next, such as a threat system and traps. But if you want in on what we're up to in the meantime, join our Discord. Link in the description box. During our first feedback cycle, we also discussed components that would heavily impact the player experience, such as battle escalation over time, interactable objects, like, I don't know, press a button and a thing does something, and partially obscured maps, thinking like Fog of War style type of thing. So we brainstormed how we could address these things in the game and judged which would best fit with the overall goals of the game and within our MVP scope. Ideas that sounded sick but definitely better suited for something like a DLC or a Kickstarter stretch goal was added to our bonus table. We're moving forward with this prototype feedback, and with each new or improved feature shared with the team as they come in something playable, we're really seeing Zelda Rogue come to life even this early on, which is super exciting. It's not trapped in documents or Miro boards. If you like what we're doing and you'd like to support us in this epic quest while also getting some behind the scenes insider scoops on everything that's going down with Paper Cutter Games, then check out our Patreon. Your support is just huge for us, especially as, well, we're a small indie studio. Link in the description. The next video hitting this channel is about creating a battle plan to secure funding as an indie game dev studio. It'll be a very real talk type of video. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe. But if writing is more your jam and you want to stay far away from the money stuff, then check out my past video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!